What's going on, my eaters? It's your boy Chef Drew, aka Chef, aka Big Drew. And y'all, this week I decided that I'm gonna show y'all, I'm gonna prepare what I call my kitchen nemesis. This thing is a part of my life, it's a part of my culture. I need it. It's a part of my favorite cuisine. But y'all, it stresses me out probably almost more than any other ingredient, any other thing in the kitchen. But I was talking to the guys and I was talking about this and they were like, yo, why don't you make that for the eaters? And I was like, for real, y'all? So I listened to them. This week, y'all, we're gonna make some rice. But before we get into that, please like, subscribe, do all the things to help us keep bringing you this great content. And let's go. All right, y'all, so like I said, we're gonna make some rice today. So y'all know, I've told you before, I'm first generation Jamaican American. My parents both come from Jamaica. In Jamaican culture, rice is everything almost. You know, you got root vegetable starches, potato, yam, cassava, things like that, and you got rice, white rice, or steamed rice, or rice and peas. Rice. And so for me, rice is something that's always been a staple. It's always gonna be a staple. We gotta have it. They have all, now when you get into rice, they have all different types of variations, things, dishes, all that. But I'm gonna today talk to you about straight up how to make a pot of white rice. I feel like everybody needs to have this in their arsenal. It's a solid starch. So everyone can benefit from learning how to make rice. The truth is, I can't stand it. It stresses me out. However, Gwen says I be overreacting. I taught her how to make rice and ain't that big a deal. But to me, it stresses me out. Maybe one of the reasons it stresses me out is because my daddy made the best rice ever. He made it perfect when he felt like it. Sometimes he got a little lazy and then it got a little hairy-carry. But if he was really into it, his rice was perfect. For me, it was perfect because the sign of good rice to me is when you get to the end of the process and the rice is cooked and it's time to eat. And when you look in the pot or you look in the bowl or whatever it is, you feel like you can pick out each grain of rice with like a pair of tweezers or with your fingertips. When you look at the rice and the end product makes you feel like you can pick out each grain clearly, that's a good pot of rice. However, I've only met very few people in my life that can do that consistently, and I'm not one of them. But I'm gonna try to get us close, y'all. If nothing else, I will get you to the point where you can have some rice good enough for your kitchen table for you to feed your loved ones, your friends, yourselves. And I'll just tell you about how we do it, how I do it, and then you take it from there. So, rice. Rice, one of the most important things you want to understand and remember always about rice, it's always a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 cups of water, 1 cup of rice. 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of water. It's always a 2-to-1 ratio, or I should say water or liquid. So for us today, we're gonna cook some jasmine rice. You cook whatever brand you want. We're just gonna make a little bit for today's purposes. So we're gonna take 1 cup of jasmine rice. Okay. So that's what we need there. 1 cup of jasmine rice. We have 2 cups of water. A little bit of salt. Today we got some olive oil, or you can use butter. Sometimes you could use a little pork fat, yeah, I mean, if you want to get a little frisky, but some kind of fat helps lubricate. You want, for me, in my world, you always want a fork. I like to use forks when I make rice, just because I think it helps prevent the rice from clumping. When you do stir the rice or when you gotta fluff the rice at the end, I like to use a fork. I think it helps preserve the integrity of the rice grains. And then you need a pot. As y'all see here, I got 2 pots. You have a regular saucepan. And then you have another saucepan, but it's just a little bit shallower. One's taller than the other. In my world, I believe, and in my experience, the shallower the pan, the better to cook the rice in. I don't know if that's scientifically a thing, but in my experience, when you cook in a deeper pan, sometimes the rice on the bottom can get a little clumpy. So the shallower the pan, the better. Obviously, you want to make sure the pot can hold it. The other thing you definitely want, no matter what the pan is, you want a thicker bottom pan, ideally. If you don't have a thick bottom pan, it will still be fine. But I just think, again, it helps preserve the integrity of the product, and the end product is better when you have a thicker bottom pan. And you always want something with a lid, or if you don't have a lid, you can make do with a piece of aluminum foil or whatever. Again, thick bottom pan. Y'all, we're gonna make this rice. Y'all, so what I'm gonna do for today's purposes, I'm gonna show you the full tried and true way of making some good rice. So the first thing you wanna do is wash your rice. You wanna wash the rice, put it in a bowl, run it in some cold water, stir it around, and pour off the white milky water until it's clear. The white milkiness that you see happen in the water when you stir the rice in it, that's the starch coming off of the rice grains, and removing that theoretically will help remove some of the starch content from the pot, make your rice less sticky. I will tell you preemptively, y'all, if it's just you or you're just fine with it, you can skip this step, but I'm gonna show y'all what it is, and then we're gonna keep it moving. I just put the rice in here, and I'm just pouring off the milky white water. You want to do this until the water is clear. For this little bit of rice, it might take 3 or 4 times. This is really a matter of preference. But when you're making certain rice dishes, mainly ones that include like beans, I say you want to get it as clear as possible, because the beans themselves offer so much starch. You don't want sticky rice. We're getting there. As you can see, that water's getting clearer and clearer. I'm gonna do it one more time, and I think we'll be good enough. You can still see the rice in the bottom of the pan with the water in it. That's how you know the water is clear enough, the rice is clean. All right, y'all, so we washed the rice. We're gonna put it in the shallower pan now, because like I said, that's how I prefer to cook it. Again, this is 1 cup of rice. I'm gonna use a little bit of this water to clean this pan out. Whoops. Well, don't make a mess. 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of water. I always at this point put a little bit of fat, whatever the fat is you chose. Like I said, this week we're going to use some olive oil. It gives some flavor, help lubricate the rice. A little bit of fat. There's no real science to that. And some salt. Season your food, y'all. Season your food. If you want, you could put a little bit of pepper in there too, or a little bit of garlic, or some fresh onion, or what have you. There's all sorts of things you can do, but I'm teaching you the basics of making a pot of rice, and you can go so many different ways from here. Salt, some olive oil. Now what I do is, I take my fork at this point and kind of make sure the rice hasn't clumped together a little bit. It doesn't happen as much when you rinse the rice as it does when you don't rinse the rice. So I kind of make sure it's spread out evenly and isn't clumped up. What we want to do, we want to bring the rice to a boil. And then when it boils, you want to bring it down to a rapid simmer. Once it's simmering, you want to let the moisture cook out of the rice until what my mom and dad always showed me was you'll see holes start to form in the top of the rice. When you see those holes, then you turn the fire down on low, and you watch the moisture from that point. What you're trying to do is cook out as much of the moisture as possible while giving the rice time to cook. And then when you feel like you have done that, what I do is I turn the fire down on very low, or I just turn it off, and I put the lid on it, and from that point, I'll let the rice steam and let the steam finish the cook. So the rice is on the fire. I'm trying to bring it up to a boil, and then we'll turn it down a little bit and let it simmer. All right, y'all, so power of a super strong burner. The water's boiling already. So as I said earlier, the water's boiling vigorously. Once it gets here, you want to turn the rice down, turn the boil down, the flame, to a place where it's like a rapid simmer. A simmer or a rolling boil. And if you look at the pot, the holes are already starting to form in the rice. So we're just going to try and let this rice cook down, let this liquid cook down till we can get it to a point where we're steaming the rice. What's happening in the pot, so this is what I'm always thinking about when I'm cooking a pot of rice. I know some people will say, just get a rice cooker, or, just cook the rice. But rice is one of those things where it really takes a level of mastery to get it right. I personally don't believe a rice cooker could ever get rice 100%. It's a great convenient option. Millions of people use them all over the world. But to really master what it takes to make some good rice takes some finesse and some time and some skill. Because what's happening is if you take a rice grain is extremely dense. And the closer you get to the center, the more dense that rice grain is, and then it tapers off on both ends. So the ends of the rice grain are more delicate, thinner than the center. When you're cooking a perfect pot of rice, what you're trying to do is to get those edges and that hard, dense center all to cook and come out right at the same time. And so that takes a level of skill and finesse. I don't think you can necessarily get it perfectly in a rice cooker. Mainly also to me because most rice cookers are very deep. And so as I said about the pot, the rice on the bottom typically gets a little bit clumpier than the rice on the top. I personally don't like that. So here, the water is cooking out. It's simmering right. We're waiting for those holes to come up. When those holes come up, clearly and defined, at that point, like I said, I'll turn the fire down low and just put the lid on it and let the rice steep or steam the rest of the way. The water is almost cooked out to the point we're starting to see the holes in the top of the rice that I was talking about. I want the moisture to cook out just a little bit longer. And then I'm gonna cut the fire down super low and put the lid on it, and we're gonna let it steam the rest of the way. This whole process will take, typically, depending on the amount of rice you're talking about, 30 minutes. So I don't know if this is a science, but to me, in my head, the way I visualize this is this entire time, the rice grain has been cooking from the edge of the grain to the middle of the grain. And so while it's boiling, while it's simmering, that's what's cooking the outer edges. By the time the water dissolves after boiling and simmering for a while, what I think and envision in my head, it makes sense to me, is that when you put the lid on it, whatever your lid is, and turn the fire down, it's the steaming now that continues the cooking and softens the inner part of the rice grain. If you've ever had rice that was not cooked fully, you can always tell because the edges, the outside of the rice is soft, but then it can be a little bit crunchy in the middle. That's not good rice. You don't want that. Okay, so the moisture has cooked out, y'all. For me, for my liking, I'm gonna turn the fire super low. We take our pot. And I'm gonna let that steam for probably another 20 minutes or so, at which time we'll fluff that thing and hopefully we'll have a good pot of rice, y'all. All right, y'all, so this rice is done. So now I couldn't, y'all, like I said, I'm Jamaican, y'all. We eat rice. I couldn't just make a pot of rice and not do something with it. So I'm gonna plate some of this up. That's gonna be cool. Also, at this point right here, for y'all at home or thinking about being home, making some rice, rice holds very, very well. It freezes very, very well. One of the things that Gwen does at home for our family when she's making, when we need rice, she'll make a pot of rice and then when the rice is done, we spread it out and let it cool on a sheet pan. And then we'll bag it up in the Ziploc bags and put it in the freezer. And it freezes really well. We freeze it in bags that we know will accommodate our family for a meal. And then when we want that rice, we take it out the morning of or the night before, or you could just microwave it real quick and boom, a few seconds, rice on the go. So, the rice is cooked. Again, like I've said to y'all many times, I love rice and I love Asian culture. So today, I made some kimchi from scratch. We got some fresh cilantro that was going bad in my refrigerator, quite honestly. So I'm like, let me use some of that before, you know what I mean? I got some olive oil and a little bit of salt. If you don't want to use olive oil, again, you can use butter. You could use sesame oil for this application. So I got a bowl here. I'm gonna take some of this rice, put it down in this bowl. Now that the rice is cooked, if you want to use a spoon to serve the rice, that is fine. I just think when you're trying to cook the rice and use a spoon, that can be annoying, make your rice clump up, things of that nature. So we got a little rice here. I got this homemade kimchi. Kimchi, a Korean condiment, fermented cabbage. There's some carrots in here, some ginger, some other things. Maybe we should do a kimchi video because I'm kind of on a kick, I think. One of my favorite things. It's actually very good for gut health as well. So we take a little bit of kimchi. Put that right on top. Y'all, I love cilantro. I love fresh herbs. I have cilantro right here. You could use tarragon. You could use parsley. You could use basil. Use what you got. We have a little bit of cilantro there. Y'all, a little bit of olive oil. You could use some butter, some sesame oil too. You don't want nothing dry. The oil helps lube it up, you know what I mean? And it'll help cut some of that tart from the kimchi. If you want, you could use a little bit of lime juice in this little rice bowl as well. You could add a protein to it, or you could eat it just how it is. I sprinkle a little bit of salt on there. You don't need much because the kimchi has salt, and as you remember, I put a little bit of salt in the rice as well to season it beforehand. And y'all, we got a kimchi rice bowl with a little bit of fresh cilantro. My approach, sometimes, you know, I pick a little bit, and then sometimes I stir. Today we're gonna stir. Man, I love kimchi. I love kimchi, y'all. It still looks pretty. Those bright colors. We got a little bit of carrots in there. Y'all, I'm a carnivore, y'all. I love meat. And let me tell you, when I eat this rice with this kimchi, I'm not even missing the meat. I feel like I'm eating a real sustenance, full plate of food here. And it's just some rice and some cabbage and some fresh herbs, y'all. Listen, y'all, we made rice today. I'm glad it worked out, or it would have been kind of embarrassing. I hope you learned something. Remember, we're here to always educate you, excite you, empower you into the life and into the business that you want for yourself. Until next time, y'all, please, please, please remember to like, subscribe, do all the things that we need you to do to help us continue to bring you this great content. And before we go, please remember my homeboys at Last Night's Coffee with Chuck and John on all podcast platforms. Chuck and John, they're some great guys. They make some great content. Until next time, y'all, we are gone.